This week's channel message from the angels is about bending our focus, and it includes some really powerful statements about how our spiritual reality is changing. So, welcome back to my channel, you guys. My name is Ann Tucker, if you have never been here, and I am a trance channel. I channel from the angelic realm, and that means I raise my awareness up as high as I can go, and I go a little higher. I connect, and the messages come through, and I share them here with you on YouTube. I channel information and healing. And this week's message is it's a super interesting one, and it is something that is part of sort of this theme of messages they've been helping us with recently. I feel like they are giving us more and more insight into how what our role is as wayshowers and how things are happening. Really, we're at this pivotal point, and they're encouraging us to open our awareness to perceive the shift that's happening around us, to let go of our expectations, and it's allowing, but there's also an active part we have to play, that if we just sit back and rest, all of this is going to wash through us and eventually that we will shift. But the role for you as a way shower is to do it proactively, is to step forward, to step into this change, to begin to let go and unlearn our old way of being, and to step into what is new, and to start to be open enough to perceive it. And at the end of the message, they give us a really beautiful and very specific offer of help. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoy the message. A quick update on those of you who listened last week. You know, I'm offering a retreat October 21st to 23rd, I believe, of this year. And that retreat is the main retreat house is full. I am sorry to say, I'm delighted to say, but I'm sorry if you missed out. But I did add another house nearby. If you want to be part of this retreat, that house is nearly sold out. There's a couple spots left. So if you feel pulled to come and spend a weekend with the angels, we're going to be working on really stepping into doing some of this work that they're talking about. So it's a really lovely, very intensive time held in a container by the angels. There is more information on my website, and which is anntucker.com. You'll see it there right at the top of there's a button you can click that'll take you to a page which will tell you all about it. If you have questions, just put a link in the comments, and I will get back to you right away. All right, hope you enjoy the message. Okay, here we go. Here's the message. And this one, a lot of you guys said you really, really liked me reading the full message first and then breaking it down. I got mostly people saying yes, but I feel like in this, so the ones that are more where I feel like there's a frequency in them where they're poetic, those ones I feel like I should definitely read the whole one first. This one, the angel actually came in and said, I usually don't read this part, I'll read it to you now, but basically said this one is a straight shooter. so they're saying, I don't think I need to read this one. I'll go paragraph by paragraph because they specifically specify. They said, this was one who enshrouds no tale in mystery, but reveals the self in total, who shares what is and tells the north, I begin. So anyway, so they're basically saying this is a straight shooter, just share it. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. All right, so here's the message. You are harboring the fruition of certainty among yourselves, the feeling of this, the sense of the self as being true north. The feeling that you are rising into a beyond that contains an element of the fruition of where you have been, as though the pathway you are on leads in one direction. There are many. This is sure, there are many. So this is getting to, guys, they've been talking to us a long time about this idea of our expectations and how our expectations are forming our reality and how the new space that we are moving into, if we are going into it expecting to see what we've seen before, we simply will not be aware of what's changing around us. So it's sort of like the example I like to think of is if you've ever, bought a big purchase, like a new car, if you've ever bought a car for yourself or something big, and then before you maybe never saw that car on the road, but as soon as you are looking at it, as soon as it enters your awareness and your expectations, you walk around and everywhere you see is that car. You notice it everywhere. And it's just a factor of our perception, that our perception forms around our expectations. So that's why this is such a big deal. Is they're saying if we lock down our perception into what has been, if we're staying within the realm of what we expect, we simply won't see. And we are supposed to be the ones leading into these changes. Like we're meant to be part of this team that's helping humanity into these. So we have to be the first wave. So we have to be open. We have to be looking for it. That it isn't enough just to be here and to let it kind of wash through you, because what will wash through us is just what we expect, right? We have to be actively looking. So they're saying, yeah, we are harboring the fruition, or you are harboring the fruition of certainty among yourselves. So this idea that we know what's coming, right? The feeling of this, the sense of the self as being true north. That idea that, so this sentence is saying that the sense of the self as being true north is that like what I've experienced, what I've lived is reality. Like that your own perception is creating reality. And they're saying the feeling that you are rising into a beyond that contains an element of the fruition of where you've been, as though the path that you are on leads in one direction. There are many, right? So that's the first paragraph. Next paragraph, they say, uncertainty is the beginning you are on. There are unfoldings for which you are ready, which you have ascertained as possibilities. Feelings and sensations rise to meet this predicted outcome, and we would have you now uncover within the self where these lie. Where are you feeling yourself bound to some truth of evolution that may never arrive? So they're saying in the beginning here, they're saying the uncertainty is the beginning that you are on. So we are heading into a time where things are a lot less certain, where we need to be prepared. And look at the activity of like where Uranus has been in Taurus, astrological all this time. Uranus is about surprise, unexpected, in terms of our earthly experience, right? Taurus is like all things of the earth. So it is unexpected. So uncertainty is the beginning that we are on. And then they go on to say, there are unfoldings for which you are ready, which you have ascertained as possibilities. So this is like this, they're saying, yeah, okay, uncertainties are coming, but there's many things that you have in your expectations still that are limitations. They're saying feelings and sensations rise to meet this predicted outcome. So when you have in your head the idea that something's going to happen, then our feelings and our sensations, it's like they're primed to feel them or to see them, right? How many of you know people who have like a chip on their shoulder and they will see a behavior in someone whether or not it exists because they're looking for it, right? I know I see that often. It's kind of heartbreaking because you see somebody stepping into their own pattern over and over and over again. When you look at it, you're like, that's not at all what that person was saying, right? That's not at all what they meant. They did not mean to hurt you, but they take it as a hurt, right? Because they've got this chip right there going, I am going to be hurt today, you know? And so our feelings and our sensations rise to meet that outcome. They say, and we would have you now uncover within the self where these lies. They want us to go deeper and to examine. And I am still finding these for myself, like things that you know, maybe I just wasn't sensitive to or wasn't aware of, places where I realize that I still have these expectations. And I think it's something it's just so hard for us to see within ourselves, where you are feeling yourself bound to some truth of evolution that may never arrive. So that is what we have to become aware of. They're really asking us this. So that's what they say this particular message is about a bending of our focus, of our awareness of ourselves. And you're saying, Adelphi, thank you so much. Great memory. Yes, that is the place I was talking about in Georgia, Delphi. That's right. I remembered hearing about them. I had to look up the name. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so if you are in Georgia, that is a reference I can give, that they're a great group of people. And you could find community there for sure. And I'm glad you could make it. Sorry, you had to join late. I'm glad you could make it. All right. Okay, so the next paragraph, they're saying the feelings in the self that rise come and become through this process of your own evolution. You feel what was predicts what is and takes what is formed in the new. A linear focus of evolution. It is this we would speak of, the sensation in the self that things fall in line and are predictable. So here's really where they're trying to focus our attention to make us aware. And it is that making us aware, that's the challenge. It's not an easy thing for us to self-assess on some of these things. And it comes from, they said, so I'll go through the paragraph, the feeling of the self that rise, or feelings in the self that rise, come and become through the process of your own evolution. So it's like, well, if this happened to me in the past, here it is, it's going to happen again, right? Boy, this person treated me badly before. I bet you everybody who fits that description is going to treat me the same way. So we have these expectations. What you feel what was predicts what is. And that which forms anew. So it's basically, we're saying that because it happened in the past, that's going to predict what's happening now, and what's happening now is going to predict what's coming in the future, right? A linear focus of evolution. So we're seeing this as a progression that we're on, like we're literally on a road, and that road is just driving us in one direction. And they say this is what they would speak of, a sensation in the self that things fall in line and are predictable. And so this is what they're trying to not totally shatter, but they want us to wake up from this way of being. Yeah. All right. They go on to say, and there is some of this in life. There are patterns to which you have subscribed, which are predictable within you. There are things in the world that have arrived again and again and are seen as a mere changing of the times, a reinvigoration of the same scene. But in this line of difference that we are upon, there's a shifting of extreme momentum, a changing of the guard, a total realignment of the earth and the divine. A changing within this realm that guides you now in a new direction, non-linear, not adjusted to perform according to your own expectations or to the lives you have been living. And this is now happening. So this is really speaking to this whole, like when they talk about that, we're letting go of our karma. Like this is speaking to that. Karma is all about like, okay, we've got this pattern that we're playing out, that we're trying to learn from. So I'm going to play the perpetrator, I'm going to play the victim, and then flippy floppy back and forth, right? Where we keep playing out the same wounds or the same circumstances, right? The same conclusions. And they're saying that, that's how it's been. Yes, they're acknowledging like, yep, that's the path you've been on. And there have been, we all know that there might be patterns. One of our members tells a really fascinating story. If you know her, she's a forgiveness coach, Brenda Reese, and she tells a fabulous story about how she discovered how she had this relationship would end for her always. I think it was like at the same time she'd be in a relationship 5 years or be in something, whatever it was, 5 years, and then it would end. And she finally looked at her life and recognized that that was the age that her father left. I think that's the story. So correct me if I'm wrong. Sorry, Brenda. But the main thing I want to point out is that it set a pattern, right? It set a pattern of this age or this number of years. And then she would reenact that pattern over and over and over again. So if you don't know Brenda, she's fabulous. You got to check her out. But she's in this group, so you could see her. And she focuses on, there's a fabulous, fabulous book about forgiveness. And I am having a deal with names. If anybody of you remember the name of that book, you put it in the chat. Forgiveness. It's called, what is it? Well, if you have it, put it in the chat and save me. But it is a book I've read and really, really liked, all about learning how everything in the world is here to serve us. Everything we experience is here for us. Great book. Really perspective shifting. Radical Forgiveness. Thank you. Thank you so much. You guys are brilliant. It's like your Google. You guys are like my own Google. I'm just going to like throw things out. Like, what is the total population of Afghanistan? And see what you say. Radical Forgiveness. Really, really, really good book. If you have not, especially for people who are just if people are on their journey and are kind of struggling with this idea of like really locked into fighting through their wounds, ways that they've been wounded. It's super good for that. Okay, so sorry, I am so like off on tangents today. Thank you guys for putting up with me. I'm like all over the place, but this is this paragraph. There's more. They get richer as we go here. I love what they're saying here. They say, in this line of difference that we are upon, there's a shifting of extreme momentum. So in other words, yes, this has been true in the past, that we have been in this time of repeating patterns where, just like I was talking about, where it's like, okay, every 5 years, it's like a new relationship, you know what I mean? Or the relationship is over because that was the pattern. But in this line of difference we are upon, there's a shifting of extreme momentum. So all bets are off, is what they're saying. A changing of the guard, a total realignment of the earth and the divine. It doesn't get more extreme than that. That's what they're saying. So this is a complete shift. So this takes us away from the karmic path. And so here's what's really fascinating to me is they don't use their words on accident, and they specifically use the words a changing of the guard. So those of you who are with me often know I talk about the Earth School and how there are angels that are tied to the Earth School, and there are rules, specific rules that we follow on the Earth School to allow for this free will experiment. And we have karma, and we have all these things that are in place. And they are saying here a changing of the guard. So we've talked about, they said, okay, no more karma. So what does that mean? All the rules change, a changing of the guard. So the rules of Earth are changing. And they even had another message that talked about like the rules are different, but like you're just kind of playing one card at a time here and giving us like, this is another little piece of information. But I'm starting to put these dots together and saying, this is going to be a very different world that we're stepping into, right? With different rules. It's almost like if you said, okay, physics, new, gravity, all these things we take for granted. Okay, we're going to rewrite that. That's the kind of stuff. I'm not saying we're not going to have physics, but you guys get what I'm saying about how the spiritual laws of our existence may be changing. Are changing. That's what they're saying. They're saying it's changing. It's this, to me, it's like, okay, now it makes sense. We have to totally shift our perspective. We have to be open-minded. Like all the practice we've had all this time of learning to trust when things don't make logical sense, right? That's just, I think, the warm-up for what we're doing. A total realignment of the earth and the divine, right? A changing within this realm that guides you now in a new direction, non-linear, not adjusted to perform according to your own expectations or to the lives you've been living, and this is now happening. All right, next paragraph. There are droughts, famine, fire. There are elements of earth that are wild and unbidden, and she rises to her tone of fruition. She bears herself wild and woolly, crazed in the passion of the unveiling. And she will rise, her torrent still is not complete. We know this. You are within this realm. You are you are of this realm and will begin again with knowledge instilled through this process. So they're basically saying, like, look at all the stuff that's going on in Earth, how the Earth is shifting, and they're saying this is not a bad thing, it's a good thing. Like the Earth is healing, this is part of the process of evolution, and we are part of it. Right? We are within this. You are within this realm. And we're going to learn from this process. This is a huge part of our growth, is our learning through this process. Next paragraph. You will have within the self an unknowing, de-learning, a retrenchment of what was, a letting go of those habits and processes you have counted upon. And this is a necessary step in this predicament of living a life surrounded by the earth and her willing juxtaposition against yourselves. There is within the self the desire to move apart from what was. It rises within the self, a readiness for difference, and to listen to this and behoove the betterment it contains. So I think that the hard thing is, it's not just that we're coming into this new, it is that we have to actively work against the way we have learned to survive in this world. Like it has really benefited us up until now to pay attention and to know our patterns and to be familiar with the way things work, right? It's been, the predictability has been an asset. It's been a way for us to like, hey, I know I can figure this out. I know how to get along with people. I know, if I do this, I do X, then I get Y, right? And if all of that is up for renegotiation, then we have to unlearn some of what we came from. It's sort of like if you switch jobs. If you're working for one company, and in one company, they're really structured and they have a lot of rules and a lot of processes and they're really process oriented. And then you go to another company and they're much more like freewheeling. You have to unlearn some of your old ways of being in order to thrive in the new company. You have to become more tolerant of unpredictability and things like that. And that's really where we're at as humanity, is we have to learn a new way of being. And unlearn. We have to unlearn our old way of being. So it's a little harder because of that. It's not just coming at it new. Maybe why some of the kids have it easier. We talk about that, like the new generation, came in with a different set of expectations, and their gifts are way more accessible and all that kind of stuff. And you're saying even synchronistic. They say that this as queen passes, system of old as earthly change. Yeah. It is interesting, isn't it? Yeah, the changing. And they said, oh my gosh, the changing of the guard. They said that, didn't they? That was in there. Yeah, the changing of the guard. That is interesting for sure, with that, knowing that the queen just passed. You're right. Okay, feel like we're playing that game where you get blindfolded and spun around and remove the blindfold and you can't walk straight. Oh my gosh, that is perfect. Thank you for that. I 100% agree. Yeah, totally. Okay. And so this here saying so, and this is a necessary step, this unlearning of our processes in this predicament of having a life surrounded by the earth in her whirling juxtaposition against yourself. So, and then they say there is within the self the desire to move apart from what was. So we have this. You might be feeling this already, like a willingness and openness to doing this, but it's going to be more than just the willingness because we have to unlearn our old way of being. They're saying a readiness for difference. They sense it and say, and to listen to this and behoove the betterment. So behoove means to make it advisable or necessary to do so. That's what. So we're basically we're making it to behoove it. So we're trying to say, yep, this is something necessary for me. Next paragraph. There is in linear focus of time an unveiling of things one upon another, but at this juncture time does shift, a separation from what was, a newness in beginning. It is as though the counterpoint to these times comes and realigns, and you take a new path, a new beginning. It is a shifting of all focus. The energy which you created up until now does carry forth, never fear. That which once was is brought forward, but not in the same direction. It opens differently. New circumstances, new prospects. There is the opportunity for more convergence with each other now, more alignment between you. So this is, I think, a very important paragraph for those of us who have been following their guidance up until now, because they have been telling us about really difficult things coming, right? Hard things on the horizon, but they always say, continue to invest now. Like, don't just pull back and go hide, in a like hobbit hole in the hills. They say, keep living your life, keep investing in the now. And they've said that your energy will carry forward. This is one of their messages. And so they're repeating that here. But I think this is interesting. They're saying, yes, continue to invest, that your energy will carry forward, but that what comes from your energy will not necessarily be what you expect. It will open differently, and there will be more of an emphasis. They're saying here, there's more opportunity for more convergence with each other now. So it may be a thing where it's like we started off this morning talking about community. That's going to be where it's at, right? How do we converge together as we're going forward? So our expectations, maybe you had a vision of yourself doing something that was relatively like solo, and maybe it becomes a team thing. You know what I mean? Maybe it becomes more about community. But more alignment between you is what they're saying. But they do want us to continue this investment and just trust the process and let it invest and let it unfold the way it's going to, so that you can harness and take advantage of these new energies. Yeah. And you're saying this feels like it is all about all the failing systems, money, government, 100%. I absolutely agree. Yeah, that we are definitely in a period where this is unraveling and unwinding. That's the de-learning, right? I think you're right that it is, that when they talk about de-learning and unwinding, that we have to let go of all these other structures that supported us so that we can reweave from the ground up with a new systems that are focused on this convergence between us. And this idea of being one with everybody, right? And you're saying, yes, convergence, we are going on an adventure. It is an adventure. Like this whole thing, I think that's why we all signed up for this crazy, crazy time. This is definitely an adventure, right? And we have a veil because it's not an adventure if you can see the ending before you start. It's got to be unveiled. Like they're doing it now. They're giving us one card at a time. Here you go. Here's a little bit more, right? I love reweave. Yes. Yeah. And I think that's where we're at, is we do need to recreate systems that support us. Yeah. In this new way of being. And this is like like the age of Aquarius, right? It's all about the people, and us people, right? All of us. Okay, next paragraph. And they, by the way, I just wanted to say, because sometimes they throw in their angel word of the day. They did say in here in this last paragraph, there, it is as though the counterpoint to these times comes and realigns, and you take a new path. And counterpoint just means like the contrast, right? So something comes that is the contrast the way it is now, and we realign. All right. Next paragraph. They say, an element of focus rises among humanity for peace and supplication to a higher nature than ever was regarded in this prior time. In this new aspect and beginning, a retrenchment is possible from that which was, which beleaguered yourselves, which kept you down, inhabiting the soul spirit at a very low frequency. This can be abandoned in this process. The sensation of the self being pulled into a torrent, a field beyond your control. This habitual misunderstanding of the energetic forces that surround yourselves can be left behind in a new sense of where you are. Embittered no longer by this lifespan, a new sense of self. I find this to be such a beautiful paragraph. I have to tell you, I just was reading, a friend of mine posted just recently that she's just going through a really hard time. She just feels like all the cards have been against her. Like she's like the last, several years, she just feels like she has been in this uphill battle. Like it's just been hard for her, And I love what they're saying here. It's that, this is such a shift, that's the kind of stuff that we can start to see change. And they're saying, like, look at the first paragraph they hear it say, an element of focus rises among humanity for peace and supplication to a higher nature than ever was regarded in this prior time. So this is like more and more people, more and more of humanity will become spiritually focused is what this is about. It's about connecting to our higher selves and connecting to that oneness. And they're saying that this is more so than ever before in humanity, that there's going to be more and more of a focus of this connection. And that's the angels rarely use these like, this is what it will be. Do you know what I mean? Like that's not there. Normally it's all about allowing and you guys are in charge and it's unfolding, but they use several phrases here that are like ever before and it will be. They're using some strong words. So when they do that, like it's like I'm listening, And so they're saying ever more so than ever before. And I have heard that like we're stepping into a time where it's like, why do you think all these healers, all of us, why are we all here, right? Because people are going to be looking for healing. I think as we go through these difficulties and as the world is shifting and people are being forced into a position, if they are clinging on to the past, they're going to be going through some difficult times and they're going to need help, right? And they're going to be looking for answers. So I think that's more and more they're saying that, more so than ever before, people are going to be reaching for spirit. So in this new aspect and beginning, a retrenchment is possible from that which was, which beleaguered yourselves, which kept you down. And then this next line, inhabiting the soul spirit at very low frequency. So like everything with the angels, sometimes it sounds simple on the first read, and then you go back and you read it again, and there's layers. They're like the masters of double entendre. They're like, or triple. They put in layers of meaning. So they're talking here definitely about how where the ways in which we are, depression and things like that. But the other layer of meaning in this is that we have been in a world where dark energy was tolerated, where we had, attachments and entities and things like that inhabiting the soul spirit at very low frequency. So the kind of thing where if you were in a moment where your defenses were down because you were depressed, because, you were in these low energies, then you can get attachments, you can get these other kind of problems happening. And they're saying that we are moving past a place where that's possible. So that's a very big statement. That means a massive shift. And it goes back to what they're saying, a realignment of earth and the divine, right? So moving away from a time when those types of energies can survive on the earth is what they're talking about here. So to me, that is like, they're making some very big sentences here. Is the way I see this message, right? And the politic of the masses becomes more the masses comes more to the fore. Yeah, I think so, Mike. I think so. I think it is like what is good for the people becomes more and more listened to. And I think that comes in with the empathy that they've talked about, that if we're feeling each other's feelings, it's very hard to not see people who are suffering, right? If you feel them, if you feel they're suffering like it was your own, then it's very hard to ignore. Yeah. You're saying, I'm thrilled that those energies will no longer be allowed. I know, me too, right? Yeah. All right, next paragraph. And I love that this part at the end, I said this habitual, the sensation of the self being pulled into a torrent, a field beyond your control. So if you've ever felt that, if you've ever felt like you keep trying to make life work and it's not, that feeling of being out of control is a really upsetting feeling. And they're saying this habitual misunderstanding of the energetic forces that surround yourselves. I love that they describe it as a habitual misunderstanding. It is that they're always referring back to the fact that we are so powerful, that we are not only the light of God, but we are like the essence, that we are the spark of God, that we have this ability to create our reality. And they're reminding us it's a misunderstanding. It's not that we are actually subject to the forces that are crazy around us. It's that we have a misunderstanding of how it works. It's the only reason we're stuck, right? Is because we misunderstand who we really are and what our actual abilities are. to limit the self no longer by what is happening, and to see, embittered no longer by this lifespan. So like how many times, like for people that are feeling like, hey, this is a little harder than I expected. I don't really like being here, right? A new sense of the self. All right, moving on. The next paragraph. This shifting temporal, a shift from what was, an abdication of that timeline, a change, a bending of your reality and focus. Of your focus, dears. It is of this that we are speaking. Your concentration upon what was lingers too long, and we must invite you to separate from that linear timeline, or linear time, to open the mind, to be ready, to be prepared to abandon what was in expectation, to limit the self no longer by what was happening, and to see instead what is now arriving. So this is the message they're just really trying to hammer home, right? Is it's about our focus. What are we seeing? What are we expecting? Where are we putting our attention? And to try as much as we can to put our attention in the now on what is occurring, and to allow ourselves to perceive it differently, and to see it outside the box, and to stretch our perception. What could it mean, right? And to just let it be, to try to see it with new eyes as much as we can. Next paragraph. We are often observing in humanity a separation of focus, a division within yourselves where you live half step in the now. And the majority of the time that you are breathing, you are spending that breath upon the non-living, upon the dead events of what passed in trajectories gone by. And you are thinking, unlearning the processes that came from there. And this habitual pattern of humanity to linger too long in what was, in the fabrication of now to match and herald back into living those old expectations. But this is a process for which your expertise and renown are known well and wide. You live the now as though it is fabricated from the strings that tied you before. So this is really they're saying, hey, we are experts at this whole creating patterns and then living them out over and over and over again. They're saying we are the champs at doing that. And we know that, right? Like that is the human experience. It is just living in the past and reliving it and recreating it in the now and so here we are these divine creators, and we are just basing our current ability to create on the template of the pain that we used to have. Which they're looking at it. You could just imagine the angels just watching us, just shaking their heads, going like, why? Why would they want to do that? Right? Yeah. Next paragraph, they say, this is not possible now as we are turning in a new direction. A new time unfolds from now, a lessening of these journeys, a lightening of those tendencies, gradually refocus the self. Begin unlearning what was. Those traits and tendencies you've harbored, dwell in them no longer. The shell that inhibits your opportunity, crack open now, and feel in the self a revelation. Just as earth herself tempests and storms, your inner being becomes alive to the now and feels in their self the potential unwinding. Yes, potential of forming into new light. So I love the strength and their faith in us in this, right? And I love that they say here important. They're saying it's not possible to continue on. So it's literally like this old structure of being, the old ways of being are dissolving. And it's not overnight, but it's gradually dissolving. The old ways, this old karmic structures where we lived according to our old patterns, that's slowly dissolving, right? And they're saying a lessening, a lightening of those tendencies to do that. But this is why they call on you, right? Who came here as a volunteer, who came here to lead the way, to do it proactively, right? But they're saying that this is going to filter through to a point where it's changing for everyone. But the more people are hanging on to the way things were, the harder it will feel. It won't feel like a blessing. It won't feel like a blessing at all. It'll be like, I think last week we talked about the joke about the baby behind the door on YouTube, the hilarious video of the little tiny baby who has the door against them, pinning them on the wall. They've got a leg behind the door and a leg out, and they're crying, and the parent comes over and moves the door, and the baby stands there for a minute, and then they reach out, they pull the door back, and they start crying again. Like the ways in which we limit ourselves, we love those, right? We love our karmic junk, and we just keep creating it over and over and over again. And they're saying that for those people who are really clinging to those things, they will sob and be sad about the things that they can't have anymore. They can't have their pain and their wounds anymore because we get so attached to them. We define ourselves by those wounds. So I think that's why they're so trying to bring this message home for us so that we can understand the role we're meant to play, right? And that is it. Like, what is the role we're meant to play? What is it to be a way shower? Like, here it is. This is what it is. This is what they're asking us to do. So it's and I love that they say that it's gradual. This is a gradually refocusing the self. So this isn't something that we're expected to do in a second. Like, it's something that, and it's many things, right? There's so many layers of this in our own. How long have you guys been working on your own healing? I'm still working on my own healing. There's always layers. If we didn't have junk to heal, we would be like one with source. So but it's a matter of refocusing our perspective of how we think and trying to learn to accept and live in the now in a much more present way. Unlearning what was, right? And then I love that they talk about, again, the shell that inhibits your opportunity, crack open now. So this is referring back to a metaphor they used, I don't know if it was last week or the week before. They were using this sort of egg metaphor, the shell metaphor. They're bringing that back here again to talk about it again, to crack that open now, the shell around us. All right, next paragraph. Letting go of now habits seems easy to us, but we know it is not. We know it can happen in an instant as we observe the self and the power that you are. In the moment of your greatest habitual seeking, you take a breath, and all is done. It is as easy as this. We observe it now and again in your entrance in this light. We see how you refocus. We see how you take your journey. And on these times when you decide, when you truly convict the self to become something new, it is done. It is done where you are without inhibition. But these times are rare, we allow. So here they're just encouraging us. They're saying, like, they know it seems hard, but they see us do it. They see us do it, and they recognize, like, it's not something that we do every day, but they know we can do this. And they say, when we really commit, right? When we decide, they say, when you truly convict the self to become something new, it's done, is what they're saying. So it's really like, it feels hard, but once we commit, and I can relate to that. There are things I have healed where I used to feel a specific way, and I thought that was so deep in my DNA that I couldn't imagine not feeling that way. It was a painful, feeling or conclusion I'd come to that I was like, oh, it just feels so pervasive. How will I ever not feel this? And now I have a hard time remembering what those things were. Like, they're so gone out of my field that I can't even, like, I'd love to give you an example. I have a hard time finding one. I can't think of it, but I know there was ways, like kooky things I used to think that it's like, how did I ever come to that conclusion? But it was there, right? And I felt it was so heavy that how do I ever budge that? It just felt so, but it was boom, in an instant. So they are right. They are absolutely right. And yes, we totally can do it. We totally can. It just takes this belief that we can. Next paragraph. They say, we will wish you, grant you, beseech you to accept our aid, to bring us down into you now, to ask us with your breath to harbor a calm. Beseech us, ask us now to bring our vision of yourself as separated from what was, to let this permeate your being, to feel your resistance crumble, to let this essence of us infiltrate your now moment, to see the breath of possibility, to feel yourself carried. It is possible now to take this turn with us, a step forward in a new direction. You are invited, encouraged. And in this, I really wanted to draw our attention to how they describe this help that they're going to give, because this is different from often how people work with the angels. A lot of times people will ask the angels for help and they anticipate that help happens out and around, outside of themselves. Here they're talking about something very different. They're asking us, and it has to be done with the breath. So that means you have to speak it out loud. So they're saying we wish you, grant you, beseech you to accept our aids. They're asking us to ask them. And they said to bring us down into you now. So it's not outside, it's in the body. And so you have to ask the angel. And this takes a high degree of trust to let anything in your body. I know that. But if you specify, you can use whatever you want to say. If you want to say for my highest and best, however you want to phrase it, and specify, only angelic beings and my highest and best, whatever you want, whatever makes you feel comfortable, speaking directly to the angels. And do clarify when you speak it to the angels, like you don't want to just open yourself up to any old thing, because there's a lot of things out there that would love to climb in, right? So we want to be clear, asking specifically to the angels. who are in your highest who are in your highest and best, right? Ask them in with your breath. So speak it out loud, and you're asking them to come in to your physical body. So this is very different from how they normally will work with you. And they say to harbor, here's what they're going to do when they're there. They say this is to harbor a calm. So all they're going to be doing when they come in is to bring in a shift in your focus. Just as the very thing they've been asking us to do. They're going to help us do it by bringing in a calm. So in other words, all of the ways where we get stuck in our junk, and when we start with those cyclical thinking, those thought patterns where we swirl, they're going to bring a calm to help us get into the now. They say, beseech us, ask us now. So they're saying we have to ask them to bring our vision of yourself as separated from what was. So they are going to help us through this calm. We will all of a sudden be able to reach a new perception of who we are, be able to see it from a new perspective. So this is what they're offering us, is to give us their vision. So in other words, it's like they can breathe an idea into your head. And so if you let them in, they give you the calm, which gives you the clarity to be able to see something. And then they breathe in their vision of how they see you, so that you can have that filter into your own mind, if that makes sense, right? To let this permeate your being. So it literally is it's a sense, it's a thought, but it is a sensation that goes through the whole body. To feel your resistance crumble is the next line, right? To let this essence of us infiltrate your now moment, to see the breath of possibility, to feel yourself carried. So this is what they're offering us. They're saying to let them in, like you literally call them in, like we discussed, using those precautions, but relax when you do it. Don't feel like you have to put a bunch of protections. It's literally you're just specifying. So just relax, invite them in, and what they will do is come in. They'll bring in the calm. They will help you. It's almost like they create they talk about the crack in the egg. It's just enough for that little whisper to come in, to give us a chance to see ourselves differently, to be open to a new perspective, to maybe see what was before really hard to perceive about what are the patterns. Like you might be thinking like, yeah, I'm sure I have patterns, but I don't know what they are. And so this is an opportunity to bring that in, where maybe it comes in. It might not be immediately. It might be a thing that sort of filters in through something that happens that day. It might be a thing that comes into a dream. You know what I mean? So it's just the breath, a gradual breath that comes in. And this is you allowing them in the body so that you are open and receptive, right? And then they say to feel your resistance crumble, which I love. Let this essence of us infiltrate your now moment, to see the breath of possibility. All this is a breath of possibility, because all that needs to happen is a shift of our focus. We just need a little help, right? Just say to feel yourself carried. And I love they add that, because they're telling us, you know what, they're always here with us. They're always helping us. Whether we ask them to or not, they are always helping us. So they're always carrying us, but they don't often come into our bodies unless we specifically ask them. So, wow, I love that they ended with that. So you're saying, cracking shell, as in my prophetic dream from the year 2000, I revel in how they masterfully articulate concepts I've been trying to share for decades. Yes, Jen, you're so right. Oh my gosh, Jen, you're so right. Oh my word. So those of you who don't know, so Jen had a phenomenally predictive dream back in 2000, which like 2/3 of it has now actually, and they were very specific things that have now come to pass that she would have had no way of knowing. And one of the things was seeing people cracking. It was part of that dream. So I never even thought of that, Jen, but you are absolutely right. Wow, that is super cool. Yeah. And the specific kind of stuff that came true in that, like she saw the Seattle, the giant Ferris wheel before anybody talked about putting a Ferris wheel there. It's now there. That was in her dream. Like specific things, buildings that didn't exist that she saw in the dream that exist now. Crazy. So yeah, super cool. I'm so glad you put that together, because that blows my mind. You're saying, I remember a younger self that would think you are crazy now in the woo. So uncool. That is I would have thought I was so kooky. I really would have. Yeah. I just, my old self. I do love her. Right? Yeah. All right. And then you're saying, I always ask that only that of the highest light and resonance to love and divine source come through me. I think that's great. That is great. Because like you said, there is, it's good to be, especially if you're inviting something into your field or into your body, you want to be clear about that. And not that we need to hold fear, because we definitely don't want fear, just a sense of like, no, I'm just being clear about what I'm inviting in. You're saying that this is amazing. Yeah, it really is. It's an amazing dream. Maybe we should do a thing about like sharing people's prophetic dreams sometimes. I know I share them sometimes, but we have got some doozies out there, some really, really amazing ones. All right, you guys, thank you so much. I know this was a long message because it was just a long message, but it was really, and they use some of the language they use. I feel like they're giving us so much more clarity. Like they're getting their words are like, talk about specific and talk about this is happening, right? They're not mincing their words here. And I, for one, really appreciate it. And it makes it more clear what we are meant to be doing as light workers, that, and why this is so important. It's the pull of focus. Like, how do we shift and change our focus and see things differently and be open, right? So totally cool. And you're saying the idea of sharing dreams would be fabulous. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's think about that. If you have prophetic dreams, or if you've had one, could you drop me a comment? And then we'll see, maybe we can pull some together and share them. That would be really, really cool. All right. Thanks, you guys. Have such a good weekend. I hope you have a wonderful one. And I'll be thinking of you. And I'll see you guys next Friday live. Bye.